The Fool Who Lost His Queen, The Secret Heir. The Fool Who Lost His Queen, a cruel exchange. Imagine a man who risks everything, trading the brilliant diamond he owns for a cheap imitation, and in doing so, loses the very queen of his life. This is the story of Henry Aguilar, who coldly scorned Sofia Romero while she carried his child, only to pursue a younger, dazzling model. He thought he had upgraded his life, constantly boasting and rubbing his pride into his ex-wife's wound. But what will happen when this self-satisfied man is forced to be in the front row, witnessing the spectacular, dazzling return of the woman he had scorned? While Henry was busy strutting with his cheap replica, Sofia, the single mother quietly rebuilding her life in Manhattan's Upper East Side, was secretly being courted and treasured by one of the world's most reserved and powerful billionaires, Julian Cortez. Prepare for an epic vengeance where the prestigious red carpet of the grand charity gala at the New York Public Library is not just a fashion runway, but a decisive battlefield. This is the moment the whole world will witness the coronation of a betrayed woman, where she rises and reclaims everything she lost with a grace that far surpasses anything her betrayer could have imagined. The usurper is about to pay for his own stupidity. The Collector and His Trophy. Henry Aguilar was a man who collected beautiful things. His penthouse in the heart of Miami's Star Island was a testament to his exquisite, if somewhat soulless taste. Polished chrome and white leather furniture sat on a vast expanse of imported Italian marble. Abstract art by trendy, up-and-coming artists adorned the walls, each piece a calculated investment. His watch was a Patek Philippe, his suits were exclusively Tom Ford, and his car, a sleek black Aston Martin DB11, purred with the promise of power and prestige. And then there was Daniela, his most recent and prized acquisition. Daniela Vega was, in Henry's own bombastic words, a true film star. With her cascade of raven black hair, seductive almond eyes, and a figure that seemed to have been sculpted by the gods, she was the kind of woman who drew gazes everywhere she went. A 24-year-old aspiring actress and Instagram model with a following of moderately impressed bots and thirsty men, she was the perfect accessory for a man like Henry. He paraded her through the city's most exclusive restaurants with a permanent smirk plastered on his face, basking in the envious stares of other men. "Look at her," he'd tell his friends, his voice a possessive whisper, as Daniela posed for a selfie at his table. "She's got that Sophia Loren look, doesn't she? A classic beauty. You don't find that anymore." What Henry conveniently omitted from his triumphant narrative was the woman he had so recently discarded to make room for his new film star, his wife of 5 years, Sophia, who was pregnant with his child. Sophia was the antithesis of Daniela. Where Daniela was a dazzling firework, Sophia was a quiet, steady flame. She had a delicate beauty, with honey blonde hair she often wore in a simple, elegant bun, and intelligent, kind eyes that seemed to see through the walls of Henry's carefully constructed facade. She was a talented landscape architect, a woman who found beauty in the natural world, not in the fleeting trends of fashion and fame. She had been the stabilizing force in Henry's life, the one who had supported him when he was just a struggling entrepreneur with a dream. He had repaid her loyalty with a betrayal so deep it had shattered her world. The day he left her was etched in her memory like a brand. She was 6 months pregnant, her body changing in ways that were both miraculous and terrifying. She had been planning the baby's room, a room full of light and love, a sanctuary for the child they had both wanted so badly. He had come home from a business trip, his face a mask of cold indifference. He had told her, with the same emotion as a man discussing a failed deal, that he was in love with someone else, someone younger, someone more exciting, someone who didn't have stretch marks or morning sickness. "I need to be with someone who inspires me, Liv," he'd said, the casual shortening of her name a cruel twist of the knife. "Someone who makes me feel alive." His bags were already packed. Her world, once a vibrant landscape of shared dreams and future hopes, had been reduced to a sterile wasteland in the space of a single, heartless conversation. The divorce had been quick and brutal. Henry, ever the pragmatist, had offered her a generous settlement, a golden cage to keep her quiet and out of his new, glamorous life. He kept the penthouse, of course. Sophia took the money and retreated to a quiet, tree-lined street in New York's Upper East Side, to a brownstone she had once dreamed of renovating with him. Now, she would do it alone. But Henry couldn't simply leave her alone. He seemed to take perverse pleasure in flaunting his new life in her face. He posted a relentless stream of photos of himself and Daniela on Instagram, their lives a curated montage of private jets, exotic vacations, and champagne parties. He tagged her in the posts, a digital slap in the face. He even had the audacity to send her a Christmas card, a professional photo of himself and Daniela in matching cashmere sweaters, smiling blankly in front of a crackling fire at a ski chalet. On the back, in his neat, arrogant handwriting, he had written, "Wishing you a Merry Christmas. Hope you're doing well." Sophia had thrown this card into the fireplace, watching the flames consume their smug, perfect faces. But the pain remained a dull, persistent ache in her chest. She was carrying his child, a constant living reminder of his betrayal. And he was living a life of consequence-free happiness with a woman who was little more than a child. His friends, a fiercely protective circle of women who had known her since college, were incandescent with rage. "He's a monster, Liv," her best friend Chloe had said one afternoon, her voice shaking with fury. "A soulless narcissist. How can you be so calm?" But Sophia wasn't calm. She was drowning. The joy she should have been feeling about her imminent motherhood was tainted by the bitterness of her heartbreak. She sat in the half-finished nursery, surrounded by boxes of unassembled furniture and untouched baby clothes, and cried until she had no tears left. Audience interaction. Have you ever felt so overwhelmed by pain that life seemed to stop? We'd love to hear your story in the comments below. What do you think was the cruelest part of Henry's betrayal? Henry, meanwhile, was utterly oblivious to the depth of her despair. Or perhaps he was aware and simply didn't care. His world was a bubble of self-congratulation, and Sophia was a distant, unpleasant memory he could easily dismiss. He was too busy curating his image as the man who had it all. He had even started a blog, a pretentious, self-aggrandizing platform where he pontificated on everything from investment strategies to the art of living a bespoke life. He wrote a post titled "Leveling Up: Why I Chose a Life of Authenticity and Passion," which was a veiled justification for leaving Sophia. The barely veiled cruelty was astonishing. He referred to his 5-year marriage not by name, but as his previous chapter, a time of comfortable stagnation and muted colors. He wrote about his new life with Daniela as an explosion of vitality, a return to passion. The article went viral in his small, privileged circle. People whispered about it at dinner parties, their eyes filled with a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. Sophia's name was on everyone's lips, the wronged woman, the discarded wife. She felt the weight of their stares, the sting of their pity, every time she left her house. Henry, on the other hand, reveled in the attention. He saw himself as a nonconformist, a man who had dared to break free from the suffocating confines of a conventional life. He was a self-actualization guru. He was also a first-class fool, and his fall was destined to be as spectacular as his rise. But for now, he was on top of the world, his film star girlfriend on his arm, the city at his feet. He had no idea that the woman he had so carelessly discarded was about to rewrite her own story, and that her return would be more dazzling than he could ever have imagined. The seeds of his humiliation were being sown in the quiet, tree-lined streets of the Upper East Side, in the heart of a woman who was slowly and painstakingly rebuilding the pieces of her shattered life. And when she was whole again, she would be a force to be reckoned with. Henry Aguilar, the man who thought he had it all, was about to lose the one thing he had never truly valued: his dignity. 2. The silent triumph. The first few months after Henry left were a blur of pain and hormones. Sophia moved through her days in a fog of grief, her pregnancy a bittersweet reminder of a future that had been stolen from her. Her friends, Chloe and Jessica, a sharp-minded lawyer who had handled her divorce with fierce tenacity, formed a protective cocoon around her. They listened to her cry, railed against Henry's cruelty, and gently but firmly pushed her toward the future. "You can't let him win, Liv," Jessica had said one afternoon. "And right now, by letting yourself be consumed like this, you are letting him win. You have to prove to him, and more importantly, you have to prove to yourself, that your life didn't end when he walked out that door." Jessica's words, though harsh, were a necessary jolt. Sophia knew she was right. She couldn't let her grief consume her, not when she had a new life growing inside her, a life that deserved a happy, healthy mother. That night, she made a decision. She would not be a victim. She would be a survivor. The next morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. She started with the nursery. She unpacked the boxes, assembled the crib, and painted the walls a soft, sunny yellow. This room was not a monument to her loss. It was a promise of a new beginning. She threw herself into her work, channeling her pain and anger into creativity. As a landscape architect, she had always found solace in the natural world, in the patient, resilient beauty of plants and trees. She took on a challenging new project, a commission to design a rooftop garden for a new luxury hotel in downtown Manhattan. The project was ambitious and demanding, and it was exactly what she needed. The work was a balm to her wounded soul, a tangible way to create beauty in a world that had suddenly turned ugly. It was during a visit to a specialized nursery on Long Island that her life took an unexpected turn. She was looking for a particular variety of Japanese maple, a rare cultivar with delicate lace-like leaves. The nursery owner, a gruff but knowledgeable man named Mr. Hernandez, told her he had sold the last one to a private collector. "A real plant enthusiast, that one," Mr. Hernandez had muttered. "Buys up all my best stock, lives on a huge estate in the Hamptons. A true recluse, they say. His name is Julian Cortez." The name meant nothing to Sophia. She was disappointed, but thanked Mr. Hernandez and was about to leave when a sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up to the nursery. A tall, impeccably dressed man with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes stepped out of the car. He exuded an aura of quiet authority, a man who was accustomed to being in control of his environment. Mr. Hernandez's face lit up. "Well, speak of the devil," he muttered to Sophia. "That's him. That's Mr. Cortez." Julian Cortez overheard him, and a faint, amused smile touched his lips. He walked toward them, his gaze falling upon Sophia. There was an intensity in his eyes that made her feel both seen and slightly nervous. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," he said. His voice was a low, cultivated baritone that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. Not at all, Mr. Cortez, Mr. Hernandez said jovially. This young lady was asking about your Japanese maple. Julian Cortez's gaze returned to Sophia, a glint of curiosity in his eyes. My Japanese maple? Yes, she said, her tone more confident than she felt. The Acer palmatum ryusin. I was hoping to use it in a project I'm designing. Julian Cortez's eyebrows rose in surprise. You're a landscape architect? I am, she said. Sophia Romero. He extended a hand. Julian Cortez. It's a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Romero. His handshake was firm and warm, and he held her gaze for a moment longer than was strictly necessary. They talked for over an hour, their conversation flowing as easily as the nearby stream. He was fascinated by her work, and she was captivated by his profound knowledge of botany and his passion for conservation. He told her about his estate in the Hamptons, a vast property he was slowly returning to its natural state. He spoke with a quiet passion that was a world away from Henry's loud, boastful pronouncements. Just as they were about to part, he said, I know it's presumptuous, but I would be fascinated to see your designs for the hotel rooftop, and perhaps, just perhaps, you'd be interested in seeing my Japanese maple. Sophia was startled, but found herself smiling. I'd like that very much, Mr. Cortez. Julian, he gently corrected her. Audience interaction. If you were in Sophia's shoes, would you give Julian a chance? The man who wronged you was a powerful businessman. The man courting you is a mysterious, reclusive billionaire. Share your thoughts. 3. The unseen partnership. Their first date, as Chloe would later call it with breathless excitement, was a visit to his estate the following weekend. It was a world away from the glitz and glamour of the city. A long, winding driveway led through a dense forest to a magnificent stone manor overlooking the sea. The grounds were a breathtaking tapestry of rolling hills, wildflower meadows, and meticulously cared-for gardens. Julian gave her a tour of the property, his love for the land evident in every word he spoke. He showed her his prized Japanese maple, its delicate crimson leaves, a burst of vibrant color against the surrounding green. He showed her his greenhouses filled with rare and exotic orchids. He showed her the apiary, where he kept bees, and the organic vegetable garden that supplied his kitchen. They lunched on a sun-drenched terrace overlooking the water, a simple, delicious meal of freshly baked bread, artisan cheeses, and salads made with vegetables from his garden. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. She found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't with anyone in a long time. She told him about her pregnancy, her recent divorce, and her struggle to rebuild her life. She hadn't meant to. The words simply poured out of her, a flood of pent-up pain and vulnerability. He listened patiently, his blue eyes filled with a compassion so genuine it brought her to tears. He offered no promises or easy answers. He just listened, and in his quiet, attentive presence, she felt a sense of peace that had been absent from her life for so long. When she told him about Henry, about his cruelty and his constant need for validation, a flicker of something cold and hard entered his eyes. He sounds like a very small man, he said, his voice low and firm. Sophia was startled by the fierce protectiveness in his tone. For the first time since Henry left, she felt a sense of safety, a feeling of being treasured. Their relationship blossomed in the following weeks. They met for long walks in Central Park, for quiet dinners, in tucked-away restaurants where they were unlikely to be seen, and for weekends at his Hamptons estate. He was a perfect gentleman, thoughtful and kind, and he treated her with a reverence that was both thrilling and slightly terrifying. She learned more about him. He was a technology billionaire, the founder of a revolutionary software company that had changed the way the world communicated. He was notoriously private, a man who shunned the spotlight and valued his anonymity. He was a widower of 10 years, His wife had died in a tragic accident. He had never remarried and had poured all his energy into his work and his philanthropic endeavors. He was everything Henry was not: kind, humble, and genuinely interested in the world around him. He was a man of substance, a man of quiet strength, and to Sophia's amazement, he was falling in love with her. He never rushed her, never pressured her for more than she was ready to give. He was patient and understanding, and he seemed to know instinctively what she needed. He would show up at her house with her favorite takeout or send her a bouquet of her favorite flowers, peonies, with a simple, handwritten note that said, "Thinking of you." One night, as they sat in front of the fireplace in her living room, he took her hand. "Sophia," he said, his voice soft but firm, "I know this is fast, and I know you've been through a lot, but I have to tell you how I feel. I'm falling in love with you." Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes. "I'm falling in love with you too, Julian," she whispered. He leaned in and kissed her, a soft, tender kiss that was filled with all the unspoken emotions that had been building between them. It was a kiss that promised a future she had never dared to dream of, a future full of love, laughter, and the quiet joy of a shared life. As her due date approached, Julian became her rock. He accompanied her to her prenatal appointments, helped her finish the nursery, and was there holding her hand when she gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. She named him Leo, a name that means lion, a symbol of the strength she had found within herself. Henry, meanwhile, was utterly oblivious to the dramatic shifts in Sophia's life. He was too engrossed in his own world, too busy flaunting his film star girlfriend and his perfect life. He had heard through rumors that Sophia had given birth and had sent her a perfunctory text message. "Congrats. Let me know what I owe for child support." He had no idea that Sophia was no longer the broken, lonely woman he had left behind. He had no idea that she had found a love deeper and more profound than he could ever comprehend. And he had no idea that he was about to make a spectacular entrance into the world on the arm of a man who could buy and sell him 1,000 times over. The stage was set for a confrontation, and the red carpet was about to become a battlefield. 4. The red carpet coronation. While Sophia was wrapped in the quiet, authentic joy of new motherhood and blossoming love, Henry was aggressively marketing his own happiness. His life was no longer something to be lived, but a brand to be managed, and he was its most relentless and obnoxious promoter. His Instagram was the primary vehicle for this campaign, a relentless stream of high-gloss, manufactured happiness. The zenith of this public relations offensive was an 8-page feature in Prestige Living, a glossy magazine whose main function was to flatter the egos of the newly rich. The article, brazenly titled "The Art of the Upgrade," was a masterclass in narcissist revisionist history. In it, Henry, photographed in his stark penthouse, pontificated on his personal philosophy, a toxic blend of plagiarized self-help quotes and stunning hypocrisy. "Authenticity is everything," he was quoted as saying. "It means having the courage to audit your life, to identify the elements that no longer serve your higher self, and have the strength to eliminate them." The article landed like a grenade in their old social circle. Sophia, cradling a fussy, milk-drunk Leo in her arms, read the article on her laptop. She looked at the glossy, sterile images of the man she had once loved and the girl who had replaced her. They looked like two beautiful, expensive mannequins, their smiles empty, their poses stiff. She looked at the warm, snoring baby nestled against her chest, his tiny fist clutching her finger, and a wave of profound peace washed over her. This was real. This was authentic. This warm, messy, unpredictable, and deeply joyful reality was something Henry, in his cold, curated world, would never understand. She closed the laptop, not with anger, but with a sudden, overwhelming wave of pity. He wasn't living a life, he was maintaining a facade, and that had to be an exhausting, empty existence. In the months that followed, Sophia's world continued to expand, while Henry's, unbeknownst to him, began to shrink. Her rooftop garden project was completed to rave reviews, a masterpiece of sustainable design, an urban oasis that felt both wild and serene. Her work earned her a prestigious National Design Award, a high honor in her field. The award led to a feature of her own, not in a frivolous lifestyle circular, but in Architectural Digest. The photo shoot was the antithesis of Henry's. Natural light, capturing Sophia in her element, her face illuminated with a genuine smile as she inspected a flowering vine. It was a dignified, powerful testament to her resilience and her craft. Julian and Sophia's life deepened into the kind of partnership she had always craved. He became seamlessly woven into her world and Leo's. He would lie on the floor for hours, his deep laughter echoing as he made silly faces at Leo. He was there for the first real smile, the first attempt at crawling, the first time Leo rolled over. They celebrated the moment with the same quiet reverence as a major business deal. They were a family forged not by obligation, but by a deep, constant, and quiet love. Henry, meanwhile, was discovering that a life built on novelty has a very short shelf life. Daniela's dazzling excitement was fading, revealing an abyss of incompatibility. Their conversations, which he had once found refreshingly simple, now seemed painfully boring. A looping soundtrack of celebrity gossip, brand names, and complaints about her Instagram algorithm. He tried to talk to her about a new venture or an article he had read, and her eyes glazed over before she interrupted him to ask if he thought a particular filter made her look divine. He was living with a beautiful, animated ghost. A strange, corrosive curiosity began to consume him. He started thinking about Sophia constantly. He found her new private Instagram account. A friend of a friend had let it slip. He created a fake profile to follow her. What he saw was a quiet gut punch. Her feed wasn't a performance. It was a diary. It was filled with candid, sun-drenched photos, Leo's unbelievably tiny feet, Sophia laughing with dirt on her cheek from her garden, a close-up of a new project's blueprints. It was a life of substance, a life that felt real. Then, he saw the photo that stopped his breath. It was a candid shot, likely taken by a friend. Sophia and a man were sitting on a park bench, sharing coffee. The man had his arm around her and was looking down at her with an expression of pure unadulterated adoration that sent a wave of hot, possessive rage through Henry. Who the hell was this guy? His fingers flew across the keyboard. He searched her name. The awards, the hotel project. And then he found him. The man in the photo was Julian Cortez. A frantic, quick search brought up a handful of old, rare articles from Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. Tech visionary, philanthropist, reclusive, and a net worth with so many commas that it made Henry's considerable wealth look like a rounding error. The blood drained from Henry's face. A cold, sick dread settled in his stomach. He had left Sophia for an aspiring actress. He had boasted to his friends that he had a film star, and she, quietly, without any fanfare, had ended up with a man who could buy and sell the entire film studio, its back catalog, and the island on which they filmed. The sheer, cosmic scale of his miscalculation was astonishing. He saw himself not as the man who had upgraded, but as the fool who had traded a winning lottery ticket for a handful of magic beans. The final act was set in motion a few weeks later. The grand charity gala at the New York Public Library, the absolute pinnacle of the social calendar, was approaching. "I'm one of the co-chairs this year," Julian casually mentioned one night, "and I expect my partner to do me the honor of attending with me." Sophia froze, a dish towel in her hand. The idea was terrifying. The cameras, the crowds, the judgment. It was everything she had spent the last year escaping. "Oh, Julian, I don't think I can," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "That world isn't me. I've been so happy being invisible." Julian walked up to her, took the dish towel from her hands, and wrapped her in his arms. He looked her directly in the eyes, his gaze steady and reassuring. "I know, and I wouldn't ask if it were just a party," he said softly. "Think of it differently. It's not about going back into their world. It's about you walking into yours, on your own terms. I want the world to see the woman I see every day, not the scorned wife from the tabloids, but the brilliant, strong, beautiful artist who is creating the most incredible life. This isn't a performance, Sophia. This is your coronation." She looked at him, at the absolute faith in his eyes, and felt her fear begin to recede, replaced by a nascent flicker of excitement. He wasn't asking her to be an accessory. He was asking her to claim her crown. "All right," she breathed out, a slow smile spreading across her face. "All right, I'll go." The next day, she made a call to a stylist. Julian had recommended a legend, known for creating iconic, elegant looks. As she described her vision, something elegant, powerful, and unwaveringly hers. She felt a sense of purpose solidifying within her. Meanwhile, across town, Henry Aguilar was pulling every string he could, calling in every favor he was owed to secure his own tickets to the gala. He finally got them, and he and Daniela immediately began planning their assault on the red carpet, plotting a coordinated look designed to get them noticed. He had no idea. He was a supporting actor in a drama he didn't even know was being written. He was preparing for a party, while Sophia was preparing for a resurrection. The grand execution. The night of the grand charity gala at the New York Public Library was less a party and more a controlled detonation of fame and fashion. It was a sensory assault, a glittering maelstrom on the grand staircase. The air itself seemed to vibrate, thick with the percussive roar of hundreds of photographers screaming, the frantic click of 1,000,000 camera shutters, and the electric hum of the crowd pressed against the barricades, their cell phones held high, like a sea of digital offerings. The theme this year, celestial bodies, had inspired a parade of ethereal and often extravagant creations, turning the grand staircase into a river of silk, satin, and starlight. It was a night for legends, not for amateurs. Into this crucible of judgment strode Henry and Daniela. Their entrance was about as subtle as a car alarm. The rented vintage Rolls-Royce, a monstrous confection of cream and chrome, was so ostentatiously large it struggled to turn onto the carpet, causing a momentary, embarrassing traffic jam. Inside, Henry had spent the last few moments giving Daniela a frantic whispered pep talk. "Remember, chin up, look bored, look indifferent, like you belong here. Don't smile too much. It looks desperate, and for God's sake, let me do the talking if anyone from Vogue comes over." Henry stepped out, ridiculously clad in a navy velvet tuxedo, with a satin lapel so wide it looked like a pair of wings. His bow tie, a monstrosity of matching velvet, threatened to eclipse his chin. He plastered a smug smile on his face, a pathetic imitation of the confident arrogance he had seen in movies, and struck a pose. Daniela emerged behind him, a human disco ball stuffed into a silver sequined gown, with a neckline that plunged to her navel and a slit that rode precariously high on her thigh. The dress was designed not to be admired, but to be noticed. A desperate plea for attention in a room full of assured whispers. They were an assault on the senses, a garish splurge of new money and unbounded ego. They posed together, their movements stiff, choreographed, and utterly devoid of warmth. Henry's hand on Daniela's back looked less like an affectionate caress and more like he was maneuvering furniture. Daniela cycled through her 3 characteristic poses: the pout, the sexy over-the-shoulder, and the hand-on-hip smirk. The veteran photographers on the line, men and women who could spot a fake a mile away, took their obligatory shots with an air of weary disdain before turning their lenses, hunting for a more authentic moment. A true star. Henry, however, was locked in a fortress of self-deception. In his mind, the flashes were a confirmation of his status. The screams were for him. He was the man who had it all. The film star girlfriend, the bespoke life, a ticket to the most exclusive party on the planet. He felt a surge of triumphant glee. He scanned the crowd, his eyes hungry for recognition, for the looks of envy he was sure he was receiving. He was here. He had arrived. He had no idea he was merely the opening act to his own execution. Then, a palpable shift occurred on the carpet. A quiet authority replaced the chaotic energy. The frantic shouting of the press corps died down, replaced by an expectant murmur. A sleek black Bentley Mulsanne, the automotive equivalent of a perfectly tailored tuxedo, pulled up with silent dignity. Its presence was a statement of wealth so deep and so discreet that the garish Rolls-Royce parked in front of it suddenly looked like a cheap toy. The chauffeur opened the door, and Julian Cortez stepped out. He needed no crushed velvet or oversized bow tie. In a classic, exquisitely cut Tom Ford tuxedo, he radiated a power that was both innate and absolute. He moved with unhurried grace, a man completely at ease in his own skin and in any setting he chose to occupy. He turned, ignoring the now frenzied press, and extended a hand into the dark interior of the car. And then, Sophia emerged. It wasn't an entrance. It was a revelation. The world seemed to hold its breath. A collective gasp ran down the press line, a sound of pure, unadulterated awe. Sophia Romero, a woman the world had forgotten, had just become the undisputed center of the universe. She was a vision out of a dream, a celestial Madonna, brought to life. Her gown, a custom creation by a revered Parisian couturier, was a masterpiece of midnight blue silk chiffon that seemed to have captured the night sky. The fabric flowed around her, falling in soft, ethereal layers that draped her 7-month pregnant form, not to conceal it, but to celebrate it, to frame it as the miracle it was. The neckline was an elegant sweep off the shoulder, and a single, magnificent diamond necklace, a gift from Julian, rested against her collarbone, sparkling like a captured constellation. Her honey-blonde hair was swept up in an intricate low bun, revealing the elegant line of her neck. Her face, superior, free of the heavy makeup favored by women like Daniela, was luminous. It shone with an inner radiance, a serene, confident joy that no cosmetic could replicate. She wasn't playing a role. She was simply, magnificently, herself. Julian's hand rested gently on the small of her back, his touch both protective and proud. He looked at her not as an accessory, but as his queen. They were a tableau of genuine love, of quiet strength, of a power so profound it needed no announcement. The photographers, who had been lethargic moments before, erupted. The sound was a continuous, deafening roar of shutters, a desperate, frantic scramble to capture an image that was already iconic. They weren't just taking a picture. They were witnessing a moment. "Sophia, Sophia, look this way! Ms. Romero, over here! Beautiful!" The screams were no longer derogatory. They were reverent. Henry stood frozen 20 feet away, the smug smile melting from his face like wax. His mind struggled to process the vision before him. It was as if he were looking at a stranger. This radiant, celestial being could not be his Sophia. The quiet, sensible woman he had considered dull and uninspired. The woman he had discarded was now the most breathtaking creature he had ever seen. His gaze flickered from Sophia's serene presence to Daniela, who was now adjusting her dress, looking annoyed that the attention had shifted. In the brilliant glare of Sophia's authentic light, Daniela's sequins suddenly looked cheap. Her practiced pout seemed vulgar. Her overtly sexual dress looked desperate. He had boasted to his friends that he had traded a sedan for a sports car. Now he saw the devastating truth. He had traded an invaluable work of art for a cheap, mass-produced replica. The realization was a physical blow. A wave of cold, sick vertigo washed over him, and the triumphant sounds of the gala faded into a dull roar in his ears. Every cruel word he had ever spoken to her came back to him, each one a fresh stab of shame. He had called her life stagnation. He had called himself a pioneer of authenticity. The hypocrisy was so vast, so profound, it threatened to swallow him whole. He and Daniela were now completely invisible, two ghosts haunting the edge of the frame. The entire world was focused on Sophia and Julian as they began to ascend the grand staircase. As she passed the spot where Henry stood, paralyzed, Sophia's gaze, for a single, crushing fraction of a second, met his. He braced himself for a look of triumph, of anger, of smug satisfaction. He would have welcomed it, but it never came. Instead, her eyes held only a quiet, deep pity. It was a look that didn't say, "I told you so." It said, "I am so sorry for you." It was the look you give to something broken, something small and sad. And in that one devastating glance, she stripped him of his anger, his pride, and the last vestiges of his dignity. He was not her villain. He was not even a footnote. He was simply an object of her compassion. That was the deepest cut of all. The rest of the night was a masterclass in public humiliation. Inside the library, while Sophia and Julian were personally greeted by the hosts and escorted to the co-chair's table at the heart of the gala, Henry and Daniela were directed by an assistant with a clipboard to a table in the confines of the room. It was a social Siberia, populated by reality stars, TikTok influencers, and the forgotten plus ones of more important people. From his miserable vantage point, Henry was forced to watch the main event. He saw Sophia, seated next to a legendary film director, deep in animated conversation, her laughter ringing softly. He saw Julian, in deep discussion with a tech visionary who had changed the world. They were not just attending the party. They were the party. The final blow to his ego came during the night's speeches. Julian took the stage, and the vast room fell silent. He spoke eloquently about the arts, about the power of storytelling. Then his voice softened, and he turned his gaze directly to Sophia. "Art, in its highest form, allows us to see the world anew," he said, his voice resonating with deep emotion. "And tonight, I stand here with the greatest artist I have ever known, my partner, Sophia Romero, who has taught me the true meaning of resilience, grace, and the transformative power of a loving heart. She took the broken pieces of a life and is building a masterpiece of strength and beauty, and she is creating our family's own masterpiece right now." He made a gentle gesture toward her, an overwhelming look of love on his face. "Thank you for inspiring me, and the world, every day." The room erupted in a wave of heartfelt applause. Sophia's eyes glistened with tears as she looked up at him. Her expression, a perfect portrait of love, was all the proof he needed. Henry felt the applause as a series of physical blows. He had had that love. He had had that masterpiece in his hands, and in his blindness, his stupid arrogance, he had thrown it into the fire. He risked a glance at Daniela. She had missed the entire speech. She was hunched over her phone, her face illuminated by its pale light, furiously editing a selfie she had taken of her dessert plate, her thumb swiping filters, completely engrossed in her own small digital world. He looked from her blank expression to the radiant, beloved woman across the room. He had boasted to everyone that his mistress looked like a film star, but his pregnant ex-wife had become royalty, and he, Henry Aguilar, the self-proclaimed king of the upgrade, was nothing more than a jester in the ruins of his own pathetic kingdom. And there you have it, a story of love, loss, and the most satisfying ultimate revenge. Sophia's journey from a shattered, discarded wife to a radiant, empowered woman on the arm of a man who truly valued her is a powerful reminder that our stories are not defined by those who leave us, but by the strength we find within ourselves to rewrite our own endings. Henry, in his blind arrogance, thought he could simply upgrade. But he learned the hard way that true value is not found in flashy appearances, but in the quiet, unbreakable strength of a person's character. What did you think of Sophia's incredible transformation? Let us know in the comments. If you loved this story and want to see more tales of epic comebacks and karmic justice, don't forget to like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas that will make you cheer. Your support helps us keep bringing you the stories you love. Thank you for watching. Epilogue. The gentle rhythm of the truth. The final reflection. 2 years after the red carpet battle, the true cost of Henry's arrogance is revealed, while Sophia and Julian forge a quiet, powerful life far from the spotlight. This is the story of true redemption, where genuine worth prevails over manufactured image. Final question. What does true success mean for Sophia and Henry now? And what legacy will they each leave behind? Share your final thoughts. The fading of the illusion. 2 years had passed since the night of the gala, the infamous red carpet showdown, Sophia's midnight blue resurrection, and Henry's humiliating traffic jam remained the stuff of legend in the New York elite circles, a cautionary tale whispered over champagne. For Henry Aguilar, the consequences were immediate and total. The public display of his cruelty, coupled with the revelation of Sophia's powerful new partner, effectively poisoned his brand. Investors who valued stability and discretion began quietly withdrawing their capital. His carefully curated image as a visionary crumbled. His relationship with Daniela ended abruptly the morning after the gala. She realized that Henry was not the ascending star she had gambled on. He was a liability, a sinking ship. She left his penthouse with her Birkin bag and her self-pity, immediately finding a new, slightly less wealthy, but less scandalous patron. Henry found himself back where he started, alone in his stark, beautiful penthouse. The only difference was that his pride, his most valuable asset, Geode Debi Hui Huai Huan Tuan. He continued his blog for a few more months, desperately trying to reframe his loss as a pivot to authenticity. But the emptiness was palpable. Eventually, the penthouse was quietly sold to cover escalating business debts. Henry Aguilar, the man who had traded a masterpiece for a mirror, disappeared from the social scene entirely, becoming the very ghost he had once accused Sophia of being. 2. The new measure of success. In contrast, Sophia and Julian found their true success in the quiet, profound rhythm of their private life. They moved permanently to Julian's secluded Hamptons estate, far from the city's chaotic energy. Julian, true to his word, used his influence not for profit, but for purpose. He channeled his resources into the Gallardo Family Foundation, renamed to honor Sophia's maiden name, Romero Cortez Foundation, funding groundbreaking initiatives in sustainable urban planning and technology education for underprivileged youth. Sophia's career blossomed. She was now highly sought after, her design work celebrated for its serene beauty and ecological consciousness. Her days were now measured in moments, not millions. Being present for Leo's first words, Mama, followed quickly by Papa, his first steps among the Japanese maples, and the quiet mornings sharing tea with Julian on their terrace. The Asian contracts are ready for the Foundation's tech model, Julian told Sophia one afternoon, his eyes glowing with genuine pride. Sophia smiled, running her hand through the soft leaves of a new flower pot. That's wonderful. But remember, the Tokyo launch is only 4 days. Leo has his first t-ball game on Saturday. The gentle, non-negotiable boundary of time was a constant reminder of their pact. Sure. The legacy of Leo. Their greatest achievement was the healing that surrounded their son, Leo. He was a happy, grounded child, surrounded by the constant, undivided love of his parents and the serenity of the natural world. One evening, as Sophia tucked Leo into bed, the boy asked, Mama, why did that man in the magazine, referring to an old prestige living he found, call your life boring? Sophia paused, kissing his forehead. Darling, he measured life by the noise he made. We measure it by the peace we find. True excitement isn't in a loud party. It's in watching a tiny flower grow in the morning. And that, my little lion, is the greatest adventure of all. Later, Sophia found Julian in the library. She rested her head on his shoulder. We won, Julian, she whispered. No, he corrected her, holding her close. We simply chose the right life. Henry is still fighting a war with the world. We chose to build a home. The story of Sophia Romero is a powerful reminder that the ultimate act of vengeance is not to make your betrayer suffer, but to build a life so genuinely rich, so deeply joyful, that their existence becomes utterly irrelevant to yours. She didn't just reclaim her life, she redefined what winning truly meant. Final message. The ultimate happy ending is not the absence of scars, but the strength of the foundation built upon the truth and the quiet joy of being truly seen. What does true success mean for the Hayes family now, and how do they honor the memory of the past? Share your final thoughts. Epilogue. Final. The infinite value of time. The last reflection. The true price of arrogance was the loss of joy. The true value of wealth is the ability to buy time, not for business, but for love. Sophia and Julian have found a perfect equilibrium, proving that the quiet life holds the greatest power. Final question. What does true happiness look like for a couple who now values presence over prestige? Share your final thoughts on their ultimate victory. The equilibrium. 2 more years unfolded, bringing the Hayes-Cortez family into a state of quiet, profound equilibrium. The Hamptons estate, with its sprawling gardens, became less a status symbol and more a living testament to Sophia's belief in the resilient beauty of nature. Julian Cortez, the former recluse, found himself smiling constantly. His philanthropic work had shifted entirely to supporting young entrepreneurs from backgrounds similar to Sophia's, a subtle way of investing in worth, not just net worth. He never had to announce his power. It was evident in the quality of his silence and the depth of his attention. Sophia's ultimate victory was evident in her effortless presence. She led the Romero-Cortez Foundation, transforming urban blight into green spaces across the country. She was no longer just a survivor or an architect. She was a visionary, using her voice to inspire change, not to seek validation. 2. The haunting of arrogance. The shadow of Henry Aguilar had faded into an anecdote, a ghost story of the social world. Henry, having lost everything to debt and bad decisions, briefly tried to contact Sophia through a lawyer, seeking to establish visitation rights with Leo. Sophia's lawyer replied with devastating simplicity. "Mr. Cortez has already legally adopted Leo. Furthermore, your prolonged period of abandonment and your documented public actions make any claim entirely moot. The window for being a father has closed." The news marked Henry's final, absolute defeat. He had lost his son, his wife, and his very identity as a man of consequence. 3. The infinite value. On a quiet summer evening, Julian and Sophia sat on their terrace. Lucas, now 4, was asleep inside. The air smelled of salt and jasmine. "You know," Sophia murmured, resting her head on Julian's shoulder, "the greatest irony is that Henry spent his life trying to buy power with money, and you used your power to buy time." Julian gently kissed her hair. "The true luxury, my love, is not the cost of the jet. It's the ability to wake up next to the person you love without the need for an alarm, and to watch your son catch a firefly without having to check an email. That time, unaccounted for, unmarketable, and entirely ours. That is the only infinite value." They sat in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined. Their life, quiet and deliberate, was the ultimate, unassailable triumph over the noise and vanity of the world they had left behind. They had built not just a family, but a legacy defined by presence, authenticity, and the profound realization that love is the only empire worth owning.